So, I am really excited to share this piece of music with you. It is probably going to be one of the shortest pieces of music to feature on this channel, but I really enjoyed composing and arranging this, and it is the theme for a sitcom which was written and produced by a friend of mine. So, this is not something I'm afraid you're going to see on the TV, at least not at the moment. But the whole process was interesting, it was informative, it was instructive, and a massive amount of fun. So that's what I would like to share with you. Now, I know several musicians, and I know a lot of them would absolutely love to be able to score a movie. Now, while you're waiting for Steven Spielberg to give you a call, there are lots of other opportunities for doing this. You can, for example, take any movie extract and write your own score to it. You have to be very, very careful though not to broadcast this, not to put it on YouTube because of copyright restrictions. However, there are pieces of movies there that you can download and freely add your music to. It's not something I've explored. If I can find any links, I will leave them in the description. Now, it helps obviously if you know a little bit about movies and how they work and how scoring for movies works, and for this I would heartily recommend Guy Michelmore's channel. Again, I will leave a link in the description. This is one of my favourite channels. He is an award-winning film and media composer, and his channel is full of hints and tips about how to compose and arrange music. In many of his videos you will see him compose a piece of music from scratch and see him arrange it. Another option, of course, is to get in touch with your local amateur filmmaker society. Now, most big cities probably have a movie making society where movie enthusiasts get together to show their movies. And of course, if it's a movie, it needs music. Now, I'm quite fortunate in that I know a lot of creative people in all sorts of artistic disciplines, and it just so happens that a couple actually are also interested in making movies. So this piece of music was written for a friend called Phil Routledge. So you can see what he's been up to and check out a little bit more about this series on his YouTube channel, and there will be a link to that in the description too. Now, one of the things which you need to know and take on board before you write music for anyone else, whether you're getting paid for it or not, is that this is their project. So your music has to fit their project and their idea of what they want. It's not there to showcase your brilliant abilities as a composer. Although if you can do that as well, that is fantastic. But the bottom line has to be the project, so you really need to keep that in mind. Now, some directors and producers are not particularly music savvy, so sometimes the description of the sort of music they would like is not easy to understand. Sometimes you have to ask a lot of questions to tease it out of them. But I'm not going to go down that path because Phil knew exactly what he wanted for his sitcom series. And his brief was fantastic. He said, I want to cross between the Brittas Empire and keeping up appearances. Now, for anyone of a certain age, and by that I mean young, the Brittas Empire and keeping up appearances were UK sitcoms shown on TV from around the early 90s to the mid 90s. I don't know if they were syndicated or travelled any further afield than that. However, there are several examples of the theme tunes to these pieces on YouTube. Now, I'm not going to put them in this video because I don't want to get hit by a copyright strike. So I will link to just 2 versions of these themes in the description. And if you want to follow my thinking as I went from listening to these themes to the piece of music I eventually produced, you might want to listen to those 2 pieces before you carry on. So if you want to do that, you can press pause and listen to the themes and then come back and we'll carry on. So if you've heard the themes, you might have an idea of the sort of flavour that Phil was after. So from the 2 themes, from the Brittas Empire, I took the drums and the sort of military feel, and there was also a flute, it might have been a piccolo, playing the lead line. Keeping Up Appearances also had a sort of a marching band feel to it, although quite light-hearted, and that also had woodwinds and a flute in it as well. So from these 2 pieces of music, I took the drums and the military feel and the marching band feel and the flute, and I wrote the theme for the sitcom. So I sent this to Phil, and he said, yes, that's nice, but can you make it all brass? As I really like a brass band. Now, I thought it sounded really good with the flute because there was a big contrast between the lead line on the flute and the brass underneath. but Phil is the boss. So if you were asked to do something like this, substitute one sound for another, the first thing to do obviously is just to assign a different instrument to that line. So that's what I did, but I have another video, I think it's about gymnopedies. I'll put a card up there to it, in which I discuss the problems of just simply substituting one instrument for another. I'm not saying it can't be done, but if you record a piece of music using a particular sound, then you play it according to the sound and the articulations and the dynamics that instrument has. So simply substituting the flute for a brass instrument, say a trumpet or a French horn, you are not going to get the same articulations or dynamics. So I tried that first, of course, and yes, it sounded okay, but I had to re-record the piece using the sound that I was going to use in order to get the best articulations and dynamics. And I sent it to Phil, and he said, "Yeah, that's great," and he's used it in this introduction. So I'm very pleased about it. I'm very excited about it. Now the music sits under the opening credits, the opening scenes, which Phil was kind enough to send along. There are no credits on this particular extract because they will vary, of course, from episode to episode. So if you check out Phil's channel, you will see a version of the first episode, which is called The Will. The overall title of the series is The Master-Servant Society, and it's a little bit Jeeves and Wooster-ish. You can probably tell that simply by watching the opening credits, but if you watch the first episode, The Will, then yes, you will absolutely get that impression. Now this is, I think we would call this a rough edit perhaps. Now I don't know if the editing as such is complete, but it doesn't have any music, and Phil intends to add that later on when he gets someone to write it. But anyway, this is something which I really enjoyed doing, and it's actually a massive thrill to see a piece of film with your music underneath it, whether it's a theme tune or a score or part of a score, or whether you're just writing little cues for different parts of a piece of music. It's really wonderful, and it's really satisfying. So here's the opening credits with the music. I hope you enjoy it. I would be really interested to know what your opinion is of my interpretation of the brief. Do you think I succeeded? Phil was happy with it, and he is the one who counts. But it would be interesting to get your opinion as well. So if you've enjoyed this video, and if you enjoy the music which you were about to listen to, then please do consider subscribing and ringing the bell so you get informed when I release new videos, and click the big thumb. It all helps. So as always, I really do appreciate you taking the time to watch my videos and listen to my music. So for that, thank you very much indeed. So here's the theme from the Master-Servant Society.
Cheers.